Six. He reached for the bag by his feet, fumbling through it until his fingers closed around a cassette marked Championship 77. It was a tape he'd heard 100 times as a kid, a recording his parents had played, showcasing his father's defining moment and the playful interview from his mom, Cola. It had always been more than a game to Marshall. It was a testament to pushing through pain and shouting out victory even when it seemed impossible. Maybe this could help me escape the chaos, anchor me to a different time, Luke thought. If this strange time-traveling journey was more than a vivid memory, maybe the tapes could guide him, let him find the origin of this brokenness, and finally make things right. With a trembling hand, he placed the tape in the Walkman, pressed play, and closed his eyes as the reception around him began to dissolve into the hum of the past. The tape crackled to life, and the background noise of an electric crowd filled the attic. Luke could almost feel the bleachers shaking as the sportscaster's voice boomed. We're down to the last one, 57. And folks, this game has been a showcase of defensive power by the Inglewood Golden Leopards. Up 45-0, the Westbrook Warriors have struggled all night. Their quarterback, number 7, John the Cannon Reynolds, has been trying to get something going, but the Leopard defense is relentless. They're going to salvage any pride. They need points now. Anything to avoid a record-breaking shutout on their home field. But with Marshall Safu Jackson leading this defensive line, even a single yard feels like a mile. The background noise swelled as the sportscaster paused. A whistle blew and the crowd roared in anticipation. And there's the last time out on the field with 1:30 to go. Let's talk about Marshall Jackson for a second. This kid is on track for a Division I offer, and there's already talk that the pros are eyeing him. He's been the cornerstone of this defense, elevating the team to a level we haven't seen in years. Now, the Warriors are back on the line, drop back formation with Reynolds behind center, 3 wideouts spreading out, desperate for a miracle. The snap cracked like a gunshot, and the sportscaster's voice quickened. There's the snap. Reynolds drops back, eyes scanning for an open receiver. The Warriors' wideouts, number 12, Tariq Johnson, number 83, Tim Carter, and number 18, Andre Lee, are running clean routes. But Marshall's on the move. He's coming off the edge, slicing through the line like it's paper. Reynolds steps up in the pocket. Too late. Sacked! Marshall Safu Jackson takes him down with authority. The crowd erupted, a wave of cheers and stomping feet shaking the stands. Clock's still ticking, folks. No more timeouts. The Warriors scramble to reset, but they're looking rattled. Reynolds shouts orders, eyes wide with urgency. The snap. Oh no, it's fumbled. The ball is loose on the field. And who's there to scoop it up? None other than Marshall Jackson. They don't call him Sifu for nothing. It's like watching martial arts on the gridiron. This is martial art at its finest. And that's the game, folks. The tape crackled as the noise of the field faded slightly, replaced by a softer sound. The transition was subtle, shifting to a quieter, more intimate recording.
Congrats on the win, Mr. Jackson,
a young Cola's voice said, playful and full of warmth.
How did you close it out so well?
Marshall's deep voice responded, a grin evident in his tone. Well, my sweet cherry Cola.
Marshall, be serious.
Cola giggled, her laughter like a melody over the fading crowd noise. Sorry, Miss Nicole, soon to be Jackson, Marshall whispered, affection evident in his voice. It was easy knowing you were there watching me. Cola's voice softened, a blend of affection and teasing.
Really? Well, Mr. Jackson, tell me your secret for the fans. How do you stay so focused out there?
Marshall's mock serious tone came through. It's simple, Cola. You give 110% every play. It's about mental toughness on and off the field. People say the best defense is a good offense, but tonight we showed that a great defense is offensive, just like we did to this so-called former wannabe champion team. And finally, you stay focused by keeping your eyes on what matters most.
And what's that?
Cola asked, a note of expectation in her voice. You, Marshall said softly, the word resonating beyond the recording. He added with a hint of mischief, "Oh, and it helps knowing I've got a date to prom."
Marshall?
Cola's laughter rang out, bright and clear.
Is that your way of asking me again?
"You know it is," he replied. "So what's the answer?"
Of course, babe.
Cola said, her joy ringing through the tape. The recording ended with the sound of their laughter blending, a perfect harmony. Luke's breath caught in his chest as the echoes of his parents' voices wrapped around him, warm and familiar. As he listened, it felt as if he were transported through time, landing right next to them in the stands of the championship game. The wedding reception, the arguments, the chaos, it all dissolved as he opened his eyes to find himself surrounded by a warm glow, the scent of roses, and the pulse of music. He was back at his high school prom. The room was alive with movement, twinkling lights reflecting off the glittering streamers and decorations. The scent of Mrs. Johnson's famous Rotel dip mingled with that of fresh roses, grounding him in this moment of youthful joy. This was one of the happiest days of his life, a moment he would always love to relive. But now, standing here with the wisdom of his years, he wondered if this was a chance to fix what was broken before it even started. Maybe this night could be more than a memory. Maybe he could change the trajectory of their love, make it solid enough to withstand the trials that would come. It was April 2004. He was 17 and he and Mari were still wrapped in the freshness of new love. They had become official on his 17th birthday, the past Christmas when he spent the holiday with her family to escape the grief of losing his father to a drunk driver. Mari had been his solace, a lifeline when the weight of his loss threatened to suffocate him. An only child with a single mother, she had welcomed Luke's attention and reciprocated with her own fierce loyalty. Mari was dancing with her friends, her chestnut brown skin glowing under the dim lights. Her hair, relaxed into soft curls with hints of honey highlights, bounced with each move. She wore an elegant, flowing, sparkling black and golden dress, adorned with a gold necklace and dangling gold earrings that twinkled as she turned. Luke felt his heart swell at the sight of her. The girl he fell in love with. He wanted this moment to last forever. As he absorbed the scene, a familiar nudge jolted him back. "Dude, are you just gonna sit here all day? Or are you gonna dance with your date?" Vonnie's elbow dug into his side, his voice teasing. Vonnie, short and wiry with his dark braids pulled back and a wide grin, had brought his cousin as a makeshift date. They both sat at the table picking at the array of finger foods, tuna squares, meatballs, and Rotel dip, while music thumped in the background. "Yeah, man, I'm going," Luke replied, dazed. He couldn't believe how perfect this moment felt. His eyes moved to Mari, who caught his gaze and flashed a smile that sent chills down his spine. She motioned for him to join her on the dance floor. "And you better keep her as your date before someone else tries to steal her," Vonnie said, chuckling. "Put on your bat cape and do your thing, bro." "Ha, all right, I'll be back," Luke said, pushing himself up and heading to the dance floor. As he reached Mari, her athletic build contrasted with his stockier frame. She threw her arms around his shoulders and he looped his around her waist. The beat slowed and they moved in sync, wrapped in their own world.
Luke, I love the way you hold me,
Mari said, her voice soft as she looked up into his eyes. "Marie, I love you." Luke's heart thudded in his chest as he repeated the words he'd first said that night. He knew, even then, that she was the one for him. When she leaned in and kissed him, whispering,
"I love you too."
He felt a surge of euphoria that made the room blur around them. The song seemed to stretch on forever, and he wished it truly would. He was wrapped in the feelings he'd always had for her, savoring the echoes of innocent love and the beginning of what he believed would be there forever. He thought of Vonnie with Sean, their union perfected in future love. This was what Luke had always craved: love, family, and connection. But then a thought seeped into the perfection. Why doesn't love last? Even the best relationships end, in divorce like his with Mari, or in death like his parents. Why couldn't love stay sealed in this phase of ecstasy, untainted by the world? He felt a pang of doubt. Was his pursuit of love flawed? Did he even know Mari as deeply as he thought he did? She had been there for him after his father's death, a constant support, but was that the foundation for a lasting relationship? As Luke reflected on the cassette tape's memory of his parents, Mari's words from their wedding echoed in his mind.
You only saw what you were afraid of, not who we were. We could never live up to the pedestal of the perfect union of Marshall and Cola Jackson.
The headphones still hung around his neck, the Walkman in his coat pocket, and a bag of tapes over his shoulder. Even in this moment, he noticed the wedding ring on his right hand. It traveled with him through time. He fidgeted with it as they danced, willing this night to give him the answers he so desperately sought. Answers on how to fix their broken marriage before it even began. The music swelled, and as their bodies moved closer, Luke's elbow accidentally pressed the play button on the Walkman. A familiar voice filled his ears, his father's deep, confident tone mixed with Cola's playful laughter. They spoke of hopes, dreams, and the love that had shaped their story. Luke's heart tightened as he realized that in all this time, he had never truly learned what Mari wanted, what her hopes and dreams were. The doubt gnawed at him, and he felt a crack form in the illusion of perfect love he'd held on to for so long. Marie? Luke forced the words through the thudding of his heart, which pounded in sync with the deep bass of the slow jam playing around them.
Yes, honey?
Mari's smile was bright, curious, and filled with innocent expectation. What does intimacy mean to you? Luke asked. It was a question he had never dared to ask before, one that had lingered in the unspoken spaces of their relationship. The moment hung between them, fragile and electric before the room shifted, the music fading into the background. Seven. In an instant, Luke found himself in a new time and space, seated at a familiar table in the front room of Vani and Chan's house. Sunlight streamed through the open curtains, casting a warm glow across the room. Chan, visibly pregnant, moved with a maternal grace, juggling the needs of her two young children, Von Jr. and Victoria, who giggled as they played with toys on the floor. The scent of brewed coffee mixed with the faint aroma of crayons and snack time. Luke cradled a coffee mug, staring blankly at the steam rising from it. Vani stood at a whiteboard, marker in hand, mapping out the floor plan for the next Comic-Con. His best friend's dark braids were pulled back neatly, his eyes lit with excitement. See? Here would be perfect for the vendors, and we can put the voice actors along this wall. Their line's gonna be ridiculous after that latest show drop, Vani said, stepping back to admire his sketch.
What about the wrestlers? You know their fans are intense.
Sean chimed in, handing a toy to Von Jr., who had started reaching for one on the table. Good point, babe, Vani said, nodding thoughtfully. Luke sat there, taking in the scene. There was a mix of emotions, a warm joy at seeing Vani and Chan together, their children young and full of life, but also a gnawing bitterness that settled deep in his gut. He remembered this day. It was right before he attempted a grand gesture to save his crumbling marriage, a gesture that ultimately failed. Soon after, he poured himself into launching this Comic-Con company with Vani. It had been a dream job filled with moments like this, laughing with his best friend, spending time with his sister and her kids. But even then, a loneliness had quietly gnawed at him, never letting go. His fingers brushed the business card in his pocket, a reminder of the future, of who he had become. It reassured him of his worth and the value he brought, but the hollow ache remained. Luke, what do you think? Vani's voice brought him back to this present. Yeah, we can put the wrestlers there and then the comic book vendors could go in that hall, Luke replied, struggling to focus. He wished he could go back to prom, back to the moment with Mari before everything fell apart. But here he was, pulled to this time, unsure why or how any of this worked. Was he changing things, or were these just echoes of the past playing out in full color? The joy of this moment was sharp and painful, layered with envy. Vonnie and Sean had the life he had wanted. A strong marriage, a beautiful home, 3 radiant kids. They embodied what Luke had seen growing up, the life he thought he would have. Their love was visible in the way their children smiled, in the subtle glances they exchanged. They seemed perfect, untouched by the arguments and heartbreak that had plagued his own marriage. A sudden wave of emotion surged up, and Luke's eyes stung with unshed tears. Before he could stop himself, he blurted out, "Why can't I just have what y'all have?" His voice cracked, and he dropped his head into his hands, weeping openly. The room stilled. The children, sensing their uncle's distress, paused their play and hovered nearby with wide, concerned eyes. "Whoa, Luke, what's going on, man?" Vonnie's voice was gentle, the casual cheer replaced with worry. Sean exchanged a glance with Vonnie, her own eyes softening with understanding. She leaned down to Von Jr., whispering,
"Why don't you and Victoria go play in your room for a bit, okay?"
The children nodded and scampered off, casting one last glance at their uncle. Sean walked over and placed a comforting hand on Luke's shoulder, her voice low and soothing.
"Luke, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I know you're trying to stay strong like Dad always did, but it's okay to let go sometimes."
Luke took a shaky breath, lifting his head slightly. It feels like everything I tried wasn't enough. I wanted what you and Von have, Sean. I wanted it so badly. And I thought I was doing it right. But it all fell apart. Sean's eyes shone with empathy.
"You're not alone, little brother. None of this is easy, but you're not broken beyond repair. Maybe it's time to figure out what you really need to fix, starting with yourself."
Vonnie stepped closer, his voice warm but serious. "We're here, man. You don't have to do this alone." Luke nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing as if the spark of an idea had just ignited in his mind. His hand moved from his chin to the marker on the table beside him. He picked it up with sudden energy, the light bulb moment overtaking him. "You're exactly right, Vonnie," Luke exclaimed, his voice a mix of excitement and desperation. "Last time I tried to do it on my own. That was my mistake, but this time I've got you all to teach me." Vonnie and Sean exchanged confused glances.
"What are you talking about, Luke?"
Sean asked, concern etched across her face. Ignoring her question, Luke stood abruptly, marching over to the whiteboard. He erased everything with quick, aggressive strokes, the marker squeaking against the surface. "Dude," Vonnie protested. "We just finished that. Come on, man, don't." But Luke was already scribbling furiously, drawing 2 columns. On the left, he wrote in large, bold letters, "The perfect marriage." On the right, "Why I'm single." "All right," Luke said, his voice trembling with a mix of determination and emotion. "Let's figure this out." He started with the right column, speaking aloud as he wrote, "Work too much, don't communicate. Not romantic enough, not attractive enough." He paused, his marker hovering, then added, "Never enough money. Location, too far. Don't listen." Vonnie and Sean exchanged worried glances as Luke stepped back to assess his growing list.
"What are you even doing, Luke?"
Sean asked, her voice tinged with frustration.
"This isn't healthy."
"I'm figuring it out," Luke said almost to himself. His eyes darted between the board and his siblings, the gears in his mind turning. "I just need to fix what's wrong with me, and then I can have what you guys have." "What are you talking about?" Vonnie asked, standing up now. "Luke, you're putting way too much pressure on yourself. Nobody has a perfect marriage. Not us. Not anybody." Luke turned to him sharply, his eyes narrowing. "Oh, really? Look around, Vonnie. You've got the wife, the kids, the house, the job. You've got everything. Don't stand there and tell me it's not perfect." Vonnie threw up his hands, exasperated. "You don't see the arguments over stupid stuff, the sleepless nights, the times we don't even talk because we're both so tired. Marriage is hard work, Luke. It's not some fantasy." But Luke wasn't listening. His eyes scanned Vonnie and Sean's cozy living room, the toys scattered across the floor, the sounds of their kids laughing in the background. He started a new column on the board. What they have that I don't. A happy marriage. Kids. Stability. A house filled with love, joy. Family support.
Luke, stop.
Sean said, stepping closer to him.
You're comparing your life to something you don't fully understand. You don't see the challenges we've been through.
But Luke's voice rose, cutting her off. All I see is what I don't have. I see a family that stays together, a love that lasts. I see everything I wanted and everything I lost. His marker pressed harder as he added, a partner who loves unconditionally, someone who stands by you no matter what. A future that isn't lonely. Vonnie walked over, gently taking the marker from Luke's hand. Bro, this isn't going to help. You're chasing something that doesn't exist. No marriage is perfect. It's messy, it's work, and sometimes it's not pretty, but it's worth it because of the love, not because of some checklist. Luke pulled away, stepping back from the board and crossing his arms. Maybe it's not perfect for you, but it could be for me. If I just figure it out, I can fix everything. I can fix my marriage. I can fix everything. Sean's face softened, but her tone remained firm.
Luke, you're putting Mari and yourself on this pedestal. Like, if you just check all the boxes, everything will magically be okay. But that's not love. That's control. And it doesn't work like that.
Luke turned back to the board, his jaw tightening. He wasn't ready to hear it. Not yet. Luke stood silently in front of the whiteboard, his chest rising and falling with the weight of his emotions. Vonnie and Sean's voices faded into a distant hum as he stared at the columns. His gaze flicked to the words he'd written. A partner who loves unconditionally. He wanted that. He needed that. But not here. Not now. He had to get away to find a moment where and when it all made sense, where the pieces of his life hadn't fallen apart yet. He had to go back. Hey, Luke said, clearing his throat. His voice sounded strained, even to himself. I think I need some air. Sean frowned, stepping closer.
Luke?
No, really, Luke interrupted, forcing a small smile. I'm okay. I need to think. Maybe take a walk, clear my head. Vonnie nodded reluctantly, his face still tight with concern. All right, man. But don't go ghost on us. We're here for you. Luke nodded back, his heart aching at the sincerity in Vonnie's voice. I know, thanks. He turned, grabbing his bag of tapes and slinging it over his shoulder as he headed toward the front door. The kids waved him off cheerfully, their innocent laughter a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling inside him. Once outside, the crisp evening air hit him, grounding him for a moment. He walked to his car, opened the door, and slid into the driver's seat. Luke sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel, his bag of tapes resting heavily on the passenger seat. The night air filtered through the cracked window, cool and calming, but his thoughts churned like a storm. Vonnie and Sean's words still echoed in his head, their laughter, their concern, the reminder of all the things he didn't have. He had walked out with a polite excuse, but his heart felt heavy with comparison and longing. He reached over and unzipped the bag, thumbing through the collection of tapes. Each one was a piece of his past, a fragment of a time he wished he could fix. His fingers stopped on a tape labeled Graduation 2000. The words, scrawled in his dad's familiar handwriting, tugged at something deep within him. 8. His dad had been the commencement speaker at Sean's high school graduation. Luke could still see him standing tall on the stage, commanding the attention of everyone with his booming voice and larger-than-life presence. He remembered sitting in the audience with his mom, his brother Joey, and one of Joey's random flings trying to soak up every word his dad had said. Marshall Jackson was a motivator, a man whose words inspired others to push beyond their limits, beyond his role as a coach. His speeches weren't just about football. They were lessons about life, resilience, and growth. Luke needed that now. He needed his father's wisdom, a roadmap to the perfect life he'd been chasing, but could never quite grasp. He slid the tape into the Walkman, the familiar crackle of static filling the silence. The worn headphones felt comforting, like an old friend. Taking a deep breath, he pressed play.
Good evening.
Marshall's voice boomed, warm and commanding.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime occasion. We got my daughter actually in this football stadium. Haha, it took years to finally get her out here. Now, I'm proud of y'all. We got my team, my sons. You guys have earned it. And my daughter, Sean, I love you.
His voice softened briefly, a note of pride threading through his words.
But as I stand here, what can I say to my little girl, to my team, and to all the graduates?
Luke's eyes fluttered closed, his father's words wrapping around him like a warm hug. He could picture the scene so clearly. The football field, alive with energy. Students in caps and gowns shifting with nervous excitement. Families perched on metal bleachers, their faces glowing with pride. The hum of cicadas filled the summer air, mingling with the faint aroma of freshly cut grass. Marshall's voice was rich with authority, yet always carried an undercurrent of tenderness when he spoke about potential and purpose.
What kind of thoughtful advice can I give you all today?
Marshall continued.
As we celebrate not just the achievements of this graduating class, but the potential that lies ahead of you. What can I say that's thought-provoking, challenging, and deep? Well, here's my advice, and I don't want you to forget this. It's going to help you.
His voice lowered conspiratorially, making the crowd lean in, waiting for the nugget of wisdom. Luke's chest tightened. His dad's words were always simple yet profound, cutting through the noise to get to the heart of things. Luke felt an eagerness building, a craving to see his father's face and hear these words flow from his lips just one more time. Static hummed softly in the background, a lull between sentences. The car around Luke began to blur, the present dissolving into a hazy backdrop. The air grew thick and warm, the sharp scent of freshly cut grass mingling with the faint tang of cologne and the sweetness of lingering perfume. Marshall's voice continued, now amplified across the stadium.
When you're baking a cake,
he paused, drawing out the moment, the smallest smirk tugging at his lips.
Always make sure you look really hard at your eggs.
The audience erupted into laughter, a ripple of joy spreading across the field. Luke's eyes snapped open, and for the first time in his time travels, he could see him. There, center stage, stood his father, larger than life, holding the audience in the palm of his hand. Luke's breath caught as he absorbed the sight. Marshall was vibrant, magnetic, the crisp lines of his suit catching the light as he gestured animatedly to the crowd. For a moment, Luke forgot everything, his failures, his regrets, the tapes. He was just a son watching his father basking in his presence. Luke sat in the bleachers, his heart pounding with anticipation. This was the moment he had been waiting for, a chance to hear his father's wisdom directly, unfiltered and alive. He glanced around, his eyes drawn to his mom, Cola, proudly rocking a vibrant dashiki head wrap and matching dress. She looked regal, radiating pride as she adjusted her seat for a better view of the stage. Beside her, Joey lounged lazily, his arms slung over the shoulders of yet another fleeting romantic interest whose name escaped Luke entirely. On the field, Sean sat among her fellow graduates, her blue and gold cap tilted slightly to the side. She was beaming, the glow of accomplishment evident even from a distance. The energy in the stadium was electric, a mix of excitement, nostalgia, and celebration. Luke's chest tightened. This moment was a gift, a chance to live the past, to soak in the presence of his family, and to hear his father's voice. But it was more than that. It was an opportunity. He could fix everything. He could ensure a future where his family stayed whole, where love didn't crumble, and where he could be the husband and father he had always dreamed of being.
Pay attention.
Cola snapped, pinching his arm lightly. The sharp sting jolted him out of his thoughts. He refocused as his father stepped to the microphone, commanding the attention of the entire stadium.
Whenever you go off and experience this world, wisdom is key,
Marshall began, his voice resonating with both authority and warmth. The crowd settled, captivated by his commanding presence.
When I played football, I had to look at the big picture. I didn't just see my role. I saw every piece, every player, every movement as part of the whole. That's how the game works.
He paused, letting the weight of his words settle.
Now, let me talk sports for a second. Stick with me. I promise this will connect. I played defense. My job wasn't just about stopping the ball. It was about knowing the field, seeing the entire game unfold before me. That's the secret to being a great player. It's not just about reacting to what's in front of you. It's about anticipating what's coming. You've got to think steps ahead.
Luke leaned forward, caught between the familiar rhythm of his father's speech and an unexpected sting of relevance to his current predicament. Marshall grinned, his charisma lighting up the stage.
I love chess, and you can't play chess move by move, piece by piece. You've got to think multiple steps ahead. Life is the same way. The future isn't set in stone. It's a game of strategy, opportunity, and perseverance.
The crowd murmured in agreement, nodding along.
This is how time works. This is how we live our lives. You have the opportunity to dream of what you could be. A doctor, a lawyer, maybe even a high school football coach like me.
Laughter rippled through the audience.
But seriously,
Marshall continued, his tone softening.
I didn't think I'd end up a high school coach. My dream was the NFL. I had the talent, the drive. But life threw me some bad passes. I fumbled a few opportunities in the end zone. I didn't get to go to college. There were challenges I didn't push through. That O-line of life seemed unstoppable. And you know what? I don't live in regret. I can't. I won't.
He paused, scanning the crowd with a knowing smile.
Every choice I made, every path I didn't take, brought me here, to this moment, to all of you.
Luke felt the words hit him like a direct punch to the chest. He wasn't sure if it was the nostalgia of the moment or the conviction in his father's voice, but it stirred something deep within him. Maybe this was the wisdom he was seeking. Or maybe it was the warning he didn't want to hear. Luke glanced over to his mom, Cola, watching her eyes fill up as she held back tears. There was so much more to what his dad was saying about his past than he ever understood. Something that impacted the trajectory of his parents' lives.
You make decisions today, but every single day after this is an opportunity to make new ones,
Marshall said, leaning into the microphone.
You can decide what direction you want to take, but let me warn you, don't live in the past. You can't change it. Trust me, I tried.
The crowd laughed again, but Luke felt the words stick like thorns in his mind. He wrestled with the thought, was this whole adventure to fix the past a mistake? He shook it off. That couldn't be right. He just needed to try harder, be smarter. His dad wouldn't understand. Marshall shifted gears, his tone becoming lighter.
Now, I know y'all are probably thinking, where's he going with this? Let me tell you a little story. I love German chocolate cake.
He patted his stomach, earning a few chuckles.
As you can see, I still do. But when I was young, my grandma told me, if you love something, you better learn how to make it yourself. So I did. I studied the recipe. I recorded her instructions. Y'all, I still have that tape, and when I started baking this cake, I only used the best ingredients. Flour sifted, buttermilk chilled, grass-fed butter, room temperature.
He leaned in, his grin widening.
But y'all remember the advice I gave you at the beginning? What is it?
Always eat eggs.
Always eat eggs. Bake a cake with good eggs. Mix the eggs first. The crowd shouted, voices overlapping.
Nope. When baking a cake, always make sure you look real close at the eggs.
Marshall's voice carried a hint of playful drama. The crowd laughed, though many looked confused.
Let me explain,
Marshall said, holding up a hand.
So I'm mixing everything together, adding my eggs directly to the batter. First egg, crack, plop. Second egg, crack, pop. Third egg, crack, thud. And there it was, a chicken embryo in my cake batter.
The audience groaned in unison.
See, y'all? My whole cake was ruined,
Marshall said, shaking his head.
And life's the same way. You can have all the best ingredients, all the best intentions, but if you don't check what you're letting in into your mind, into your heart, it can ruin everything. You gotta check your eggs. Say it with me. Check your eggs,
The audience chanted, now fully invested.
because what you let in, what you focus on, what you believe, shapes everything. And when you're intentional about what you allow in, when you're proactive instead of reactive, you set yourself up for a life of freedom. I'm not saying problems won't happen, but you'll grow, you'll endure, you'll shine.
The applause was thunderous. Luke sat frozen, tears threatening to spill. He wanted to rush down and hug his dad, to tell him how much he missed him, to tell him everything. Maybe if I warn him, maybe if I tell him to stay safe, he won't die. Maybe if he's here, Mom won't fall apart. Maybe I'll be better, stronger, happier. The determination hit him like a bolt of lightning. Luke stood abruptly, his feet stomped loudly against the metal bleachers.
Where are you going, Luke?
Cola asked, her eyes narrowing. Bathroom, Luke stammered. I'll be back before Chon's name is called.
Hurry up, you better not miss it.
Cola said, wagging a finger. Luke nodded and dashed down the bleachers, his heart racing. He had to find his dad. He had to change everything. The crowd's applause thundered across the football field as Marshall stepped off the stage, his face beaming with the joy of a man proud of his daughter's accomplishments. He waved at familiar faces, exchanging quick handshakes and nods with parents and teachers as he made his way toward the sideline. Luke stood frozen in the shadows of the bleachers, his heart pounding in his chest. This was his chance, his only chance, the moment he had dreamed about for years. He didn't have a plan, just an overwhelming urge to see his father again, to say the words he never got to say. His hands gripped the strap of the bag slung over his shoulder, his fingers brushing against the hard plastic edge of the Walkman inside. "Dad," Luke called out, his voice trembling with urgency as he stepped forward. Marshall turned, his expression shifting from surprise to familiarity as he recognized his son. "Luke, what are you doing down here?" He chuckled, pulling Luke into a firm, warm hug. "You're acting like you haven't seen me in years." Luke clung to him, savoring the embrace for a moment longer than necessary. His voice cracked as he said, "I've missed you so much." Marshall pulled back, his brow furrowing as he studied Luke's face. "Miss me? Son, what's going on? Your eyes look different." Luke hesitated, the words caught in his throat. How could he explain any of this? Instead, he let out a nervous laugh and shrugged. It's been a weird day." Marshall's eyes dropped to the bag on Luke's shoulder. His smile faltered. "Wait a second. Where did you get that bag?" He pointed at the worn leather strap. Is my Walkman in there?" Luke's stomach churned. He tried to deflect, but Marshall's gaze hardened, cutting through the half-formed excuses. "Don't tell me you've been using it," Marshall said, his voice low and serious. "Oh no. You're time traveling right now, aren't you?" Luke nodded slowly, his throat dry. "Dad." Marshall rubbed the back of his neck, his expression a mixture of frustration and regret. He grabbed Luke's arm and walked him into the empty locker room. "Listen, son. I know the power in those tapes. I've been where you are, and I need you to understand something. This isn't the blessing you think it is." "But Dad," Luke's voice rose, desperate, "I can fix everything. The accident, Mom's grief, my marriage. I can change it all. I just need to..." "Stop!" Marshall's voice boomed with an authority that froze Luke in place. His father's eyes, so familiar and so kind, now held a sharp edge. "You think I didn't try?" "I tried, Luke. I tried to fix everything, and it only made things worse." Luke's breath hitched. "But you died in a car accident. You didn't have a chance to fix anything." Marshall's shoulders slumped, his voice softening. "I know, son. I couldn't avoid it, and I tried to change it. Every step I took, every decision I made to fix things only led me right back to where I started, or somewhere worse. Luke's grip on the bag tightened. But these tapes, they're your voice. I listened to one, and it brought me here. They're supposed to help, aren't they? So Marshall sighed deeply, placing a hand on Luke's shoulder. The tapes don't fix anything, son. They show you what was, not what could be. They give you glimpses, but they can't rewrite the past, and if you're not careful, they'll trap you. Trap me? Luke's voice was barely a whisper. Marshall's gaze grew heavy. If you aren't careful, you'll lose yourself in the past. You'll chase ghosts, trying to change things that can't be changed. And while you're stuck looking back, the future will pass you by. You'll be stuck forever. The tapes, they're tied to the things you hold on to, the things you can't let go of, your regrets, your fears, your idols. Luke flinched at the word. Idols? Marshall nodded. They don't always look like statues or golden calves, son. Sometimes they look like the things we think will complete us. A perfect family, a successful career, the love of someone we think will make everything right. But when you hold on too tightly, when you make them everything, they weigh you down. They keep you from moving forward. Luke's heart raced. But I just want to fix it. Marshall let out a long breath, his tone softening, but still firm. Luke, you've already lived this. The past is done. You can't fix it because it's not broken. It's just life. The future, though, that's not written yet. That's where your focus needs to be. You have to learn to let go, to trust that what's ahead is worth more than what's behind. Luke's eyes filled with tears. I don't even know what to let go of. Marshall smiled gently, pulling him into another hug. You'll figure it out, but you need to stop running from your present. That's the gift. Carpe diem. Go home, son. Enjoy your present. I don't know how to get back, Luke admitted, his voice cracking. Marshall pulled back, his eyes searching Luke's. The jumps are tied to emotion, to memory. Focus on where you came from, on what you want to return to. Focus on the when that's your anchor to get you home. But what if I'm not ready? Luke's voice trembled. What if I mess it up again? Marshall's smile was bittersweet. Then you keep going, but not by rewriting the past, by learning from it, by living better tomorrow. Luke nodded slowly, the weight of his father's words settling over him. Okay, Dad, I'll try. Marshall gave him a firm pat on the back. As a wise sage once said, do or do not. There is no try. Now go and do, before it's too late. Luke slumped onto the cold wooden bench in the locker room, the echoes of his father's voice reverberating in his mind. You need to go home. The tapes aren't a gift. They're a trap. The weight of those words hung heavy in the air, pressing on his chest. He glanced down at the bag of tapes lying at his feet, their presence both hopeful and foreboding.